Claire enters the story quietly, but with a fire that never really sleeps, the kind that hums under the skin and shows up in the way her hands move across fabric. She's the woman who learned early how to make beauty out of scarcity, sketching dresses at a kitchen table that still smelled like morning coffee. As a narrator would tell it, she doesn't chase attention. She lets her work do the talking. And oh, it speaks volumes. Every stitch carries memory, resilience, and a deep, almost stubborn belief that creativity can change a life. When she finally meets Ricardo, charming, polished, always a step ahead in conversation, it feels like fate giving her a megaphone. Together, they look unstoppable, even if only one of them truly knows where the soul of the brand lives. From the outside, the partnership looks like a perfect dance. Ricardo handles the rooms Claire never liked, the late dinners, the sharp smiles, the promises whispered over clinking glasses. He talks numbers and growth while she talks textures and silhouettes. And somehow the world believes they are speaking the same language. As the collections roll out, applause follows, then press, then invitations that arrive thicker and faster. Claire feels proud, yes, but also stretched thin, like fabric pulled just a bit too tight. Still, she tells herself this is what building something real feels like. A little uncomfortable, a little thrilling, like standing in heels for hours because the moment matters. Behind closed doors, Claire's process is almost sacred. Early mornings, bare feet on cold floors, music low, sketchbook open, the smell of fabric dye lingering in the air. She pours her past into every line. The years of being overlooked, the quiet strength learned from watching her mother mend clothes instead of replacing them. Each design becomes a conversation between who she was and who she's becoming. When Ricardo praises the collections, she smiles, but there's a flicker in her eyes, a hope that one day the world will know her name, not just the logo stitched inside the collar. Recognition starts to grow, slowly at first, then all at once. Buyers want meetings, magazines want interviews, and the brand begins to feel bigger than the small studio where it was born. Claire stands at the edge of this expansion, excited and uneasy, sensing a shift she can't quite name. Success has a sound, a buzz that never turns off, and she's learning how loud it can get. Somewhere between celebration and exhaustion, a subtle question forms in the background, waiting patiently for the next chapter to give it a voice. As the brand's name begins to echo through showrooms and social circles, Claire feels that strange mix of gratitude and vulnerability settling into her chest. She watches models glide under bright lights, wearing pieces that once existed only in her imagination, and for a moment, there's pure joy. It's the kind that brings a soft smile and a quiet breath, like realizing a long-held dream has finally learned how to walk. Yet even in these triumphant moments, she notices how introductions change. Ricardo speaks first, louder, longer, while she's described as the creative force, a phrase that sounds flattering, but oddly incomplete. Claire nods, tells herself it's temporary, that timing is everything. The narrator might lean in here and say this is where instinct whispers, that gentle inner voice women learn to hear over decades. Claire senses a growing imbalance, not in talent, but in power. Ricardo's confidence sharpens as the stakes rise, while she remains focused on the work, trusting that integrity will protect her. She believes that shared success means shared respect, because that's how she would do it. In quieter moments, folding fabric or adjusting a seam, she reassures herself that partnerships are built on trust, and trust, once earned, doesn't vanish overnight. But momentum has its own appetite, and it's hungry for control. As doors open wider, Claire stands at a crossroads she doesn't yet recognize, feeling both closer than ever to everything she wanted and oddly distant from it. The air around her hums with possibility and unease. Like the pause before music changes key, something is shifting beneath the surface of all this beauty and applause, gently tugging the story toward a seam that's about to be tested in the next chapter. When the brand crosses into real fame, the kind that fills spreadsheets and headlines, the tone around Claire subtly cools. Meetings feel shorter, emails feel colder, and the warmth she once sensed in shared decisions starts to thin out. A narrator would note how betrayal rarely arrives with drama at first. It slips in quietly, disguised as strategy. Ricardo begins making choices without her, just small ones. he says. Nothing worth worrying about. Claire feels it in her body before she understands it in her mind. That tightness in the chest, the sense of being slowly edged out of a room she helped build. The moment it becomes undeniable doesn't happen under bright lights, but in an office that smells faintly of cologne and printer ink. Ricardo speaks smoothly, explaining restructures, investors, a new direction, using words that sound reasonable, yet land like a door closing. Claire listens, stunned, her thoughts racing back through late nights, sacrificed weekends, hands stained with ink and dye. She wants to interrupt, to remind him of where this all began, but shock steals her voice. It feels like watching someone else's life unfold, one where her name is being carefully erased. Afterward, she walks the city streets alone, the noise around her strangely muted. Store windows reflect her face back at her, composed but hollow, as if part of her has been left behind in that office. Anger flickers, sharp and hot, followed by grief that settles deeper, heavier. The brand continues to rise, but now it's lifting without her. And that realization presses against her like a weight she didn't train to carry. Somewhere inside that ache, a question forms, sharper than before, quietly pulling her toward what comes next. In the weeks that follow, Claire watches from the outside as the brand she birthed blooms without her name attached. Magazine spreads celebrate Ricardo's vision, interviews praise his bold leadership, and her designs walk runways stripped of their true origin. Each headline feels like a paper cut, small but relentless, reopening the same wound. The narrator would slow the pace here, letting the weight of invisibility sink in. Claire feels anger, yes, but beneath it lies something more corrosive, the ache of being rewritten out of her own story. It's not just professional loss, it's personal erasure. At home, time stretches uncomfortably long. Mornings arrive without urgency. Coffee grows cold on the counter, and silence fills spaces once crowded with deadlines and dreams. She touches old sketches, tracing lines she remembers drawing with certainty and hope. Flashbacks surface uninvited, moments of laughter with Ricardo, promises spoken with easy confidence, trust given freely. Now those memories feel altered, like photographs that fade once you realize they've been staged. Claire wrestles with self-doubt, questioning whether her faith in partnership was naive or simply human. Yet even in this low tide, contrasts emerge. Some days she collapses into exhaustion, grief wrapping around her like a heavy coat she can't take off. Other days, a spark breaks through, brief but undeniable. She notices a detail in a passerby's coat, an unexpected color combination in a shop window, and inspiration flickers despite everything. These small moments don't heal her, but they remind her that her creativity still breathes. And with each quiet reminder, the story inches closer to a turning point she hasn't fully claimed yet. The final blow lands not with confrontation, but with confirmation. Claire sees a televised interview where Ricardo stands confidently beside a new partner, speaking as if he alone carried the brand from idea to empire. There's a moment where he gestures toward a sketch on screen, one Claire recognizes instantly, down to the curve of the neckline. Her breath catches, her throat tightens, and for a second the room feels smaller. It's the unmistakable sting of truth settling in, the realization that what was taken wasn't just credit, but identity. Tears come quietly, not dramatic, just heavy, the kind that leave you staring at the floor long after they fall. In the days that follow, anger sharpens into something more focused. Claire begins to understand that silence has a cost, and she's been paying it daily. She feels the weight of every woman who has ever been asked to step aside, to be grateful for being part of the process. That awareness doesn't soothe her pain, but it gives it shape, direction. She starts to see her experience not as an ending, but as a brutal lesson, one that's stripping away illusions and leaving clarity behind. Late one night, surrounded by old fabrics and unfinished pieces, Claire stands alone in her studio space, running her fingers over textures that still respond to her touch. The air smells of dust and possibility. Something shifts inside her, subtle but irreversible, like a door unlocking. She doesn't know exactly what she'll do next, only that disappearing is no longer an option. The story leans forward here, poised between loss and resolve, inviting the next chapter to take its first breath. At first, Claire allows herself to fall apart, because sometimes that's the only honest response to loss. Days blur together as she moves through the city unseen, watching billboards and storefronts celebrate designs born from her hands. The narrator would soften the voice here, acknowledging how grief isn't loud all the time. Sometimes it's just a constant hum in the background. Claire feels invisible, like a ghost walking through a life that kept going without her permission. There's shame mixed in too, the quiet question of how she let this happen, how trust turned into a trap, but despair has a shelf life, even when it feels endless. One morning, as she folds laundry and listens to the radio half-heartedly, something inside her resists sinking further. It's small, almost unnoticeable, like a muscle remembering its strength. She catches her reflection in the mirror, older, wiser, marked by experience, and realizes she's survived too much to vanish now. That awareness doesn't erase the pain, but it reframes it, turning sorrow into fuel she doesn't yet know how to use. Slowly, Claire begins to re-enter her own world. She cleans her workspace, not with urgency, but with intention, touching each tool like a familiar friend. Sketchbooks reopen, fabrics are laid out again, and the act feels both terrifying and comforting. Every line she draws carries emotion, anger, hope, defiance, all layered together like fabric on a dress form. Without announcing it to anyone, even herself, Claire takes her first step back toward ownership, toward a future that refuses to be silent, setting the stage for what she's about to choose next. As days turn into weeks, Claire's grief begins to change shape. It no longer collapses her inward, it sharpens her focus. The narrator might note how pain, when examined closely, can become instructive. Claire starts sketching with a different energy now. Bolder lines, stronger silhouettes, less concern for approval. These designs aren't meant to please buyers or fit trends. They're meant to speak truth. Each piece reflects a chapter of her life, resilience stitched beside vulnerability, strength softened by grace. She works mostly at night, when the world quiets and memories feel less intrusive. The soft glow of a lamp, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the familiar scratch of pencil on paper, all of it grounds her. Flashbacks drift in, moments of being dismissed, interrupted, overlooked, and instead of breaking her, they inform her. She makes choices deliberately, asking herself what she would create if no one could take it from her. The answer surprises her and excites her in a way she hasn't felt in years. Alongside the creativity, a plan begins to form, not loud or reckless, but precise. Claire understands now that revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like undeniable excellence. She studies the industry from the outside, noting patterns, timing, the hunger for novelty. Each observation adds another thread to a growing strategy. By the time she looks up from her work, there's a quiet confidence settling in her posture. She's no longer reacting to what was taken. She's preparing for what she's about to reveal, and the story edges closer to its next reveal. Claire's new collection starts to take form like a secret whispered between her and the night. Fabrics she once hesitated to combine now collide in daring harmony. Colors she never trusted herself to mix suddenly feel inevitable. Every stitch carries intention. Every silhouette tells a story of reclamation. She notices small gestures mattering more than ever. A hand brushing a hem, a curve shaped just so, and realizes these details speak louder than words ever could. Her heart, once heavy, now hums with purpose, a steady rhythm echoing determination. Isolation becomes her ally. She meets with trusted artisans, quietly assembling a team who believes in her vision without knowing the full plan. There's a thrill in secrecy, in creating something monumental under the radar while the world continues to celebrate the false narrative. The air in her studio feels electric, charged with anticipation, the scent of fabric, dye, and determination mixing like a spell. Each day, Claire senses her confidence crystallizing, the kind that comes from knowing you've survived betrayal and found your own power. And yet, even amid this focused creation, Claire allows herself fleeting moments of reflection. She thinks of the women who've been ignored, the mentors who encouraged her, the sacrifices she's made to keep her art alive. These reflections aren't pauses. They're fuel, reminders of what's at stake and who she's fighting to honor, including herself. The story now leans forward, poised on the edge of revelation, as Claire prepares to step into a world that thought it had erased her, but is about to meet her in full force. Fashion Week arrives, and the city buzzes with the usual frenzy, cameras clicking, heels tapping on polished floors, the perfume of anticipation in the air. Ricardo's brand shines under every spotlight, flawless and confident, unaware of the storm quietly brewing elsewhere. Meanwhile, Claire moves with purpose through the hidden corridors of her own plans, invitations folded carefully into envelopes, addresses whispered only to those who will understand. The narrator would note how tension tastes different when you're armed with creativity and resolve, the thrill mingling with nerves. Electric and undeniable, every step she takes toward the secret show feels like reclaiming a piece of herself that was lost. The studio has transformed into a cocoon of brilliance. Lighting hangs low, fabrics drape like liquid, and models adjust garments in silence, absorbing the gravity of the moment. Claire walks among them, a quiet conductor, guiding each movement, every detail. Her eyes catch the shimmer of sequins under soft light, the perfect drape of a sleeve, the gentle sway of a hem, and a smile flickers, small, private, victorious. Here, in this hidden world, her designs speak louder than any press release ever could. And for the first time in years, Claire feels fully seen by the people who matter most, the ones who share her passion and understand her vision. Whispers of curiosity begin to ripple outward. A select few recipients of her invitations clutch them with disbelief. Their imaginations ignited. They sense something extraordinary is coming, a deviation from the expected, a story waiting to be unveiled. The city doesn't yet know, but every pulse of anticipation beats toward the same inevitable crescendo. Claire stands at the threshold, heart steady but alive, ready to remind the world that brilliance cannot be hidden forever and that the next moment will change everything. The night of the secret show arrives like a carefully orchestrated storm. Velvet curtains part, revealing a runway bathed in soft, golden light, the scent of fresh flowers mingling with polished wood and anticipation. Models glide forward with quiet confidence, each step echoing in the hushed room, carrying garments that feel alive, almost breathing. Every piece is a declaration, a story stitched into fabric, whispering Claire's journey of loss, resilience, and audacious reclamation. The audience senses it immediately. This is not just fashion. It is a statement, raw and undeniable. Cameras click, flashes spark, but Claire stays backstage, watching, letting her designs speak first. She feels the tension, the collective gasp as eyes widen, and she allows herself a small, private thrill. The choreography, the fabrics, the colors, they all align like a perfect symphony, telling her story before a word has even been spoken. Every detail she thought might go unnoticed, the curve of a neckline, the flow of a skirt, the way light catches the sequins, is observed, appreciated, celebrated. For the first time in years, she feels in control of her narrative. Even the smallest gestures on the runway carry weight. A model pauses just a moment too long. A hand lifts to brush a strand of hair. A heel taps softly against the polished floor, and the room leans in, captivated. Energy pulses through the space like electricity, tingling, almost tangible. Each observer begins to sense the magnitude of what's happening. This is a revelation, a quiet upheaval of everything they thought they knew about the brand, about who creates brilliance, about whose name deserves to be whispers, evolve into murmurs of disbelief as the final models take their place, every design surpassing expectation, defying the ordinary. The audience leans forward, eyes wide, pulses quickening. Claire can hear her own heartbeat backstage, steady yet fierce, a rhythm that mirrors the triumph she's been quietly crafting for months. Each garment tells a chapter of her story, pain, perseverance, and undeniable genius, woven into textures and colors that feel almost alive. It's a revelation without a word spoken, yet the message lands with precision. The true vision belongs to her. From behind the curtains, Claire notices the subtle reactions, the tight grip on a handbag, a quick intake of breath, a whisper shared between two editors. The room vibrates with recognition, a collective realization that brilliance cannot be stolen. That authenticity always shines through. This moment is more than a show. It's a reclaiming, a quiet dismantling of a narrative that sought to erase her. And in that charged, golden-lit space, Claire feels a flicker of satisfaction that's been years in the making, the kind that courses through your veins and refuses to fade. And yet, the story isn't over. The show has done its work, created ripples of awe and curiosity, but the final step, the revelation, the confrontation, the reclaiming of her name, is still waiting. Claire exhales slowly, feeling the tension shift from anxiety to readiness. The world is about to meet her fully, and the next moment will change everything she thought she had lost forever, drawing the story toward a climax that no one will forget. The room falls into an expectant hush as Claire steps onto the runway, her presence slicing through the golden glow like sunlight breaking a storm. Gasps ripple through the audience, a mix of surprise and recognition, as every eye locks on her. The narrator would linger here, noting how a single moment can carry the weight of years. The laughter, the tears, the betrayal, the late nights, the stolen credit, all converging into one powerful step forward. Claire's gaze sweeps over the crowd, unwavering, and in that glance, she communicates everything she hasn't been able to say aloud for so long. Ricardo freezes, mid-smile, as the reality hits him like a mirror he cannot shatter. The audience pieces it together before he can speak. This is the mind, the hands, the vision behind the designs they've been applauding for months. Claire doesn't need to shout. The evidence is sewn into the fabric, draped across the models, and now it's sewn into the air. Whispers swell into murmurs, murmurs into exclamations. The room seems to pulse with the weight of recognition, a tangible electricity that hums through every heartbeat present. Every step Claire takes is deliberate, each movement a reclaiming of space that was denied to her. She doesn't just expose Ricardo, she exposes a system that often allows talent to be overshadowed by charm and manipulation. The audience, editors, and industry insiders are spellbound, watching not just a designer, but a woman asserting her truth with precision and grace. Behind the spectacle, Claire feels a quiet satisfaction, not vindictive, but resolute, a confirmation that integrity paired with brilliance cannot be hidden forever. As Claire reaches the center of the runway, she pauses, letting the moment breathe. The murmurs swell into a tense hush, the kind that grips the chest and makes the world feel suspended. She lifts her hand, pointing subtly toward the details only she could have crafted: the signature embroidery, the hand-stitched seams, the colors no one else would dare blend. Every person in the room realizes what they're seeing. This is the authentic voice, the creative genius, the rightful architect of a brand they thought they knew. Recognition washes over the crowd like a wave, exhilarating and overwhelming all at once. Ricardo's composure cracks, the charm and confidence he wielded for so long faltering under the weight of undeniable truth. Editors exchange glances, social media influencers already pulling out their phones, and industry veterans whisper feverishly to one another. Claire's quiet assertion speaks louder than any confrontation could. She doesn't need to yell. She doesn't need to argue. Her work, her presence, and her story do all the talking. The audience is not just witnessing a reveal. They're witnessing a reclamation, a moment where the stolen is restored and the overlooked finally celebrated. Every heartbeat backstage and in the front row carries the tension of transformation. Claire feels it too. Not as pressure, but as affirmation. Each glance, each gasp, each recognition cements the truth she has carried alone for so long. The world is watching, learning, and witnessing her rise in real time. And just as the spotlight bathes her in light, the narrative begins its final turn, reshaping perceptions, loyalties, and respect, ushering in the inevitable shift that will leave no doubt about whose brilliance truly owns the stage. Claire lets herself finally smile, not the polite or cautious smile she's offered the world before, but the one that carries years of struggle, betrayal, and relentless dedication. The audience leans in as she speaks softly, her voice steady but resonant, revealing not just her identity, but the story behind every stitch, every silhouette, every line that had been stolen. The murmurs of awe swell, and for the first time in years, Claire feels seen in a way that isn't filtered through someone else's ego or narrative. It's raw, it's satisfying, and it's undeniable. Ricardo steps back, powerless as the room collectively shifts, alliances forming in real time. His opportunistic charm has no weight here. The truth has a gravity all its own. Editors nod, influencers snap photos for documentation, and the fashion world, which once cheered him on, now tilts toward Claire, recognizing the injustice and celebrating her audacious reclamation. Every gasp, every whispered, "She did it," reverberates like applause in her chest. This isn't just victory, it's validation of every late night, every doubt, every moment she refused to disappear quietly. By the time the lights dim and the final model takes her last step, Claire's name is no longer whispered behind closed doors. It echoes. The story she's lived, the designs she's created, and the integrity she's held through betrayal all converge into one undeniable truth. Brilliance, when true, cannot be stolen or hidden. As the audience rises, applause cascading like a wave, Claire stands tall, not just as a designer, but as a woman who reclaimed her art, her legacy, and her voice. And as the curtain falls, the world knows this is only the beginning of the chapter she will write on her own terms.